again, working with knowledge. When there's sufficient detachment, this is called the yoga ladder. When there's sufficient detachment from work, the outcome of work, as in being the enjoyer of the outcome of work, then the intelligence becomes more peaceful, sharper, clearer, stronger. Then comes discernment, becomes stronger, focusing more on the spiritual identity while doing work. And as that becomes more elevated, then there's, in addition to the soul that's within, there's a supreme soul also within. So the concept of I'm spirit soul takes on another step in the yoga ladder, which is recognizing the supreme soul side by side with the individual soul within each and every body. And then comes meditation. The soul directing consciousness to the supreme while doing what you do in your everyday life. That's the yoga ladder. And then the topmost of the yoga ladder, according to the end verse of chapter 6, the topmost of the yoga ladder is Bhakti yoga, and it has two parts: what the mind does and what the body does. It's very simple. Mind absorbed in madgatenan taratmana, the mind absorbed in Krishna, mud, first person singular, absorbed in me. And then what the body does is bhaj. I'm not a Sanskrit scholar, but I've learned a few things. Bhaj, it's right in Prabhupada's purport. B-H-A-J, spelled different than the English bhaj. B-H-A-J, bhaj means, it's a dhatu, or root, that means engaging the senses in objects of the senses with practical activity. Because those that are following the Gyan process and even the meditation process, they want to withdraw the senses from sense objects. To consolidate, concentrate within on the supreme person who's situated within the body. Bhakti, or bhaj, is to extend the senses into the field where the sense objects are there, and engage the senses with sense objects for the pleasure and satisfaction of the supreme. Doing your startup work, or doing your environmental legal work, and doing what you do. What year are you in your studies?
Senior year in high school.
High school. What year?
Senior 12th grade.
12th grade. Okay. So you do your 12th grade homework. The same, whatever the position is of the body in the body development, spiritual consciousness doesn't change, or it evolves, but it's the same principle as throughout life. It doesn't matter. This, that, the other, same principles with different applications of those principles depending on the circumstance. The touch is the other half. It's what the mind does and what the senses do, what the body does. Engage with the world around you in such a way that the satisfaction of the supreme is the consciousness behind what the body does. It takes cultivation. So then the middle 6 chapters is, here's how. Really simple. I mean, the layout is simple. The application is where it's a little bumpy. But here's how. Because that's high. We don't live like that. How do you do that? So Krishna gives the how-to. Middle 6 chapters. And then the final 6 chapters is taking the items that have been explained in terms of knowledge, expanding on them. Nothing new, but going more deeply into analysis, intellectual analysis of things. I'll give a very simple example. Chapter 7 of Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says, here's the 8 material energies. Aside from those 8, there's a spiritual energy, and I'm the controller of both. But in that chapter 7, it gives 8. In chapter 13, which is the beginning of the final 6 chapters, Krishna gives 24. It's the same, he just expands it with further divisions and subdivisions, but those are the building blocks that make up everything of this world. And then there's the soul that's different than the building blocks that make up this material world. Same understanding is in chapter 2 and in chapter 7. Now it's just expanded. Everything in the last 6 chapters is going more deeply into things that have already been explained. Its emphasis is on again. So we'll go like this. And then we're going to look at a verse from chapter 18. That's, to the topic of what's the purpose of life. The same thing we talked about in Gita Nagari. But let's go to Bhagavad Gita with it. So the middle 6 chapters are Bhakti. Because the end of 6, Krishna says, the best of all yoga systems, here's the yoga ladder, the topmost is Bhakti. Now I'm going to explain Bhakti. That's in the middle. The beginning part is emphasis on karma yoga, detached work. The final 6 chapters is emphasis on knowledge. So karma yoga, Gyan yoga, and Bhakti yoga. Our commentators say, this is nice, I just shared something I like. If you have, Bhakti is in the middle because it's the most important and most valuable. It gives some examples. For example, if you have valuables, supposing in your family there's heirlooms and it's precious gold or whatever, that would happen in families sometimes, and they pass it on from generation to generation. Where do you put those valuables? A, B, or C? You put them at your front gate. You put them in your backyard. Or you put them in a safe place somewhere in the middle of your house. Let's see. This goes in the middle. Another example. This is our acharyas giving these examples. Supposing there's a procession and there's, the VIP, the president, the governor, some VIP. Now, does he go at the front of the procession? Does he go at the end of the procession? Does he go at the middle of the procession? He goes in the middle. I had a little practical example of this, just a little anecdote. 1975, something like that. There was an effort by Prabhupada, our founder Acharya, to establish a temple in Vrindavan. It was an ordeal, but when the opening of the temple was arranged, an invitation was accepted by the governor of UP. So he came. So before he came, they sent, the police to go make sure everything's safe for the governor. And then came the day. And those of you from India, they sent, the first was the military. Here comes the king. Military vehicles. I mean, not like tanks and things like that, but, military vehicles with guns and a show of strength. And then the governor was in the middle. And then, the ministers and those kind of people came third. And at that time, a fancy car was an ambassador. Now it's different. But then 1975, little white ambassadors. So they all were piled into those ambassadors, and they were the third in the line. But the governor was in the middle. So same. Bhagavad Gita has that same structure. There's karma yoga at the beginning, Jnana yoga at the end, and bhakti's in the middle. And there's a third example that's given, the structure of a house. And you have in an A-frame house, you have walls and doors and windows, but you have to put that which is going to support everything. Otherwise, the doors and windows and walls don't do anything. They just collapse. You need the main structure, the main support beam. So Bhagavad Gita has Bhakti in the middle because it's the main. The others are not. They don't lead to Bhakti. They're helpful, but they're not the essence of Bhakti. They may help one become more effective at Bhakti, or say it the other way. Bhakti includes detached work and proper knowledge. It's included. There are verses in the Bhagavatam that say that specifically. Knowledge and detachment arise naturally so from Bhakti. So Bhakti is at the centerpiece of Bhagavad Gita. And the topic that I was asked to speak about is, what's the goal of life? So, the goal of life is Bhakti. Or if that's the means to reach the goal, then the goal is pure Bhakti, because we're not there yet. We're somewhere over here. We're spirit souls inside a body that's conditioned in different ways, as bodies condition us in different ways. And that's not who we are. We're not the body, we're not the covering, nor are we, like this, when we were in Gita Nagari, you probably remember, I sat through 4 sessions of meet a monk. So what's a monk? Can you do cartwheels and backflips? And what do monks do? So this color indicates, because people ask, it's traditional. It's not a requirement, but it's a symbol or a sign of being a monk, or being a celibate person who lives their life in a different way than other people may live their lives. So there's characteristics of everything, but there's the characteristic of the soul. And Bhakti is meant to utilize 2 things. Utilize the fullness of your psychophysical nature, the covering. And the second part is awakening an understanding of who you are on the spiritual plane. And gradually, evolving of knowing who you are. And knowing who you are means to know who you are in relation to the big picture of things. Like what's everything that's out there that I'm engaging with? What's its purpose? That it has a connection with the Supreme, its source. So how do I engage with stuff out there in such a way that I'm honoring it, and it's under the direction of the source? You'll solve a lot of ecological problems or environmental problems if people could become knowledgeable of who they are and what everything out there is, and what's the purpose of everything out there. And without awakening that consciousness, you're managing the shadow as best you can within the tools, but it doesn't change the root. So knowing who you are through that yoga ladder system includes knowing what the material energy is, the world around us, and where does it come from, what's its purpose, how to engage with it in connection to its source. That's a fuller description of knowing who you are. Or to say it the other way, it's incomplete if you don't have that picture. So the verse that we're going to look at is 1854. And the Sanskrit phrase is Brahmabhuta. That's knowing who you are. She needs a Bhagavad Gita. Can you give her your Bhagavad Gita? 1854. So I'll go through the Sanskrit quickly, and then we'll go back and break it down a little bit. Brahmabhuta prasanatma vasochatina kangsati samaksarveshu bhuteshu mad bhaktin lavate param. For me, it's really easy because it's a well-known verse. There's several parts. The Brahmabhuta part is to know who you are. Brahmabhuta. To know that you're to know, not just notionally or conceptually, but who you are as a spiritual entity. That includes knowing who you're not, but who you are. So who you're not is, it's a covering. We don't trash the covering. It's just not who I am. So I engage according to my position. Like so using this language from Gita Nagari, I'm a monk or a sannyasi. So I engage accordingly. And I don't do someone else's duty. That's the topic I'm going to speak about at 26 Second Avenue this evening. I don't engage in somebody else's duty. Supposing I had a big car, and a big bank account, and a big house, and lots of worldly possessions. That's not the lifestyle of a sannyasi or a monk. It's not. Anyway. And if a householder lived their life like me, they wouldn't be doing their duty properly. So it's not like everyone has to do the same thing. We're individuals, and there's appropriate interacting with the world around us according to your position. And that's fine. It's perfectly natural. But while doing this or that or the other thing, know who you are. That's the Brahmabhuta. And there's three symptoms of Brahmabhuta. The first of the three that's mentioned is prasanatma. Atma means the soul or the self, and prasanna means happy, happiness within, or contentment within, or feeling fulfilled within. I mentioned this yesterday evening, or maybe it was this morning. It was this morning, but it's made an impression, so I'll repeat it. University of Maryland, maybe 40 students attending a discussion. And at the end of the discussion, there were some really talkative people. And then there was one quiet person sitting over to the side. And when the talkative people kind of simmered down, he raised his hand very mildly and said, Indian young fellow, I'm a grad student. I'm doing very well in my academics, and I feel lots of pressure because my peer pressure and parental pressure and social pressure to do real well, and I'm doing really well. I grew up with it. However, I've reached a point where I understand I don't want to stop doing well. Or even, I'm not trying to stop that pressure, but I have this feeling that there's something missing. And why and what to do, basically. There's something missing is this higher purpose. This is the topic that I've been asked to speak about. The purpose. The purpose is not just doing well, because he's doing well. And he doesn't want to stop doing well. If it wasn't like, stop doing well or stop trying to do well. But for what purpose? And if you don't know who you are inside, then you're going to feel something's missing. That's what he was feeling. So when you know who you are, then the first of the symptoms is there's a happiness within. Most of you have Bhagavad Gitas. You can look it up. Maybe I'll make reference, but it's chapter 5, text 14, where it specifically says that one who's feeling happiness within isn't looking for happiness without. I mean, you do things without, but it's not, I'm doing them because I want some happiness by stuff. There's a happiness within. Then the second symptom follows the first symptom. That's na sochati na kangsati. That's, how you look outside, neither hankering or lamenting. Hankering is something I don't have. Lamenting is something I've lost. And so I'm lamenting. Hankering and lamenting. Hankering and lamenting. Passion and ignorance. Something I don't have, I want. Something that I had, but it's gone. Lamenting. So this is speaking, mindfulness is a buzz these days. Just before coming here to Connecticut, I was in Boston. And while in Boston, I visited 2 universities, Northeastern and Brandeis. And I was told by the person that organizes the program at Brandeis, there was a priest, Christian priest, that conducted a mindfulness seminar. And he had a big following because mindfulness is you're in the moment. You're not worrying about the future or lamenting over the past. You're just in the moment. Mindfulness message. So he even took Zen techniques for his Christian group. But, to be mindful of what? So he connected that mindfulness to Christian theology. But it's a principle. It's the same principle. It's not this theology is better than that theology idea. It's the principle. It's not this ism versus that ism. It's a principle. And the principle of mindfulness is right in Bhagavad Gita, right here. Na sochati na kangsati. Just be present with this mission of life while you're going about dealing with the energy out there, the objects of the senses, and the senses engaged with the object of the senses in a mindfulness manner. Neither hankering nor lamenting. So yes, the purpose of karma yoga has been fulfilled. So back to karma yoga. What's karma yoga? Do your prescribed work according to your nature, but don't be attached to the results. Some of you know the verse. Karma eva nikaraste ma paleshu kadachana. Ma, it means not. Pala means fruit. Kadachana. You're not entitled to the fruits. What are you entitled to? You're entitled to perform your duty as best you can. So if you don't have attachment to the fruits, what's your motivator? Make offerings to the Supreme. That's the yoga part. Make your life an offering unto the Supreme. And that's, the trajectory takes you fulfilling my psychophysical nature tendencies to do this or do that or do the other thing. Whatever your nature is, it's fine. Keep it within the boundaries of virtuous work. Don't become an inspired criminal or something, but within that which is to be done. And do that as an offering to the Supreme. because of the age group here, I think I'll share this. There's a really bright, very happy, and very thoughtful young man who just wrote a letter to me saying, I'm finishing my senior year, my final year in college, and I'm looking at the potential of what's the first job I'm going to take. And he laid two things out. And I said, do the one you're inspired by. Then he wrote back saying, well, if I'm inspired by it, isn't it a risk because I'm going to get attached to it? Because I'm inspired by it. And I don't want to risk. I want to, so it's not like I got to do something you don't like because then you won't be attached to it. You do things whether you like it or you don't like it because there's a purpose. And if you're connecting with that purpose, you're protected. There's some nice explanation. I sent him some nice explanation from commentaries to help him understand. The holistic picture of life is, yes, we're spirit soul, but we also have a body, and we have a mind, and we have an intelligence, and we have to use them. We use them, body, mind, intelligence, in service to the Supreme. And if you don't have that alignment of connection of service to the Supreme, you're going to have hankering and lamenting. You're not going to be mindful. You can try, but it's unnatural. The mind's going to go. But if that attachment or direction towards this purpose of life, you made that yoga connection, yoga meaning linking with the Supreme, then you're just fine. You grow it. It may be immature, but you just grow it and grow it and grow it, and then it becomes your life. There's what you do outside, and there's what's going on inside, the connection with the Supreme. So then there's no hankering, no lamenting. And then the third characteristic of knowing yourself is samak sarveshu bhuteshu. It's a phrase that's very common. It several times comes in Bhagavad Gita. Pandita samadarshana, some of you know the verse, seeing things equally. Seeing there's diversity out there, but you see with equal vision. Samak sarveshu bhuteshu. Sarva bhuteshu means all living entities. And all living entities, there's abundant diversity, even just among humans, but to speak of all the other forms of life. Abundant diversity, but seeing living entities equally. There you go, environmental law. See all living entities equally. If you or I can get people to be respectful of other living entities because they're spirit souls like you are. Different bodies, different coverings, higher, lower, peers, whatever. But in principle, be respectful. Samak sarveshu bhuteshu. The symptom that comes from the first one. The first one is the Brahma Bhuta, know who you are. And that's a very simple way of saying, what's the purpose of life? Or the value, let's say it differently, what's the value of this human form of life? It's a rare opportunity. The rare opportunity of knowing who you are, because other life forms other life forms. Let's do this one, and I'll end. The other life forms, there's many. Many times Prabhupada would say, Darwin didn't create evolution. or the concept of evolution. It's there in Padma Purana. Really? Padma Purana says evolution? Not chemical evolution, but evolution. So many species aquatics, so many species plants, so many insects and flies, and then birds, and then animals, and then human. And the evolution is through coverings, where the lower forms of life have heavier duty coverings, and then less covering, and higher consciousness, and then comes the human form of life. Here's an interesting one. The lower life forms cannot incur karma. If a dog bites you, there's no karma for the dog. If the dog that wags his tail, there's no good karma for wagging his tail and smiling. They do not generate karma because consciousness has not evolved to the point where they can make such choices. They're just moving by the impulses of the modes of nature. And then the modes of nature determine, as consciousness evolves, a higher form, less covering, higher form, less covering, higher form. In this human form, there's the capacity for self-realization, to know who you are. Other life forms don't have that capacity. So supposing we miss out, we don't use this human form for that purpose. And we're living, although in a human form, we're not living in the consciousness of a human being. We're not taking proper advantage of, here's $1 million. Now what are you going to do with it? Depends on your consciousness. What are you going to do with it? This is more valuable than $1 million or $1 million. It's the opportunity to know who you are, which results in breaking of the bondage of material existence. That's what's in the purport that I didn't read. It breaks the bondage of the cycle of birth and death. Supposing you don't do that, then you're bound to the cycle of birth and death. Whatever, higher, lower, in between, etc., etc. And it's just the law of nature. The wheel keeps turning. The wheel of time keeps turning and turning and turning and turning endlessly. So it's a very special. The value of the human form of life is to know who you are, in the higher sense, in the spiritual sense. And if you get the spiritual sense together, you'll have a much better sense of who you are, even in terms of the covering. What your nature is, what's appropriate for you, how to engage with the energy around you in the most effective way to accomplish what you want to accomplish. Intelligence is provided to those people who have that disposition of knowing who you are and connecting with the Supreme. Say it the opposite. Those that don't have that disposition, their intelligence is bewildered. It's right in Bhagavad Gita. You can look it up later. 241, Bhagavad Gita. Bhushaka yinantasya. Buddhayo vyavasainam. Buddhi. Intelligence is splayed out, many branched. Bhushaka. Not focused. That kind of intelligence that helps us be worldly effective and spiritually effective is given to those who are very clear about what the value and the mission of human life is. And then you can be the best that you can be in whatever that is. And that's the principle to live your life by. And you just work at it. You know, there's ups and downs and bumps in the road and things like that. The material energy is a little rough sometimes. But if you have that clarity of the value of this human life, the mission that is meant to be accomplished and fulfilled by this human life, you stay with it. Slowly, 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 following these these guidelines in Bhagavad Gita, and more likely you'll be effective than if not guided by that wisdom. Okay, so there's the topic. Ramananda wanted me to speak on that topic. So 1854, I mentioned 3 verses. You can look them up later because you have Bhagavad Gita's. 1854, there's a nice purport. Chapter 5, text 14. It also speaks about happiness within. And if you don't have that happiness within, you're distracted. It's connected to this verse we just discussed. And 241. Where is Buddhi? Who is, to which persons is Buddhi awarded? Is spiritual intelligence. To who? And who doesn't receive it? Important verses. Huh? 241. 241. 514, 1854. I'll leave it to your imagination. I've been living this lifestyle for a good number of years now. How many years? 50 or something like that. So it's inside. It's not just here. And you're, most of you anyways, are younger than me. And just take it and stay with it. It'll grow and it'll grow. And the outside covering identification, false ego, subsides, and it's in its place comes a spiritual sense of who you are. It's like a dimmer switch. As the light comes on, darkness is dispelled. You'll do the same thing because you have a nature, psycho-physical nature. You do the same things. Don't stop them. Do those same things. Just stay in that position and do what's natural for you, but don't do with identification with the covering, with identification with who you are, and striving further and further and further to become more focused on who you are while you're doing what you're doing that matches your nature. Pretty simple. The principle is simple. Difficulty is we're attached to misidentification and what goes along with it. Starting with attachment to the fruits of our work and trying to be the enjoyer of it. Okay, let's see if there's some discussion. I hope it was meaningful. I tried. Comments, questions? Yeah.
Not strictly related to this passage, but I'm not as well versed in like karma and reincarnation. I was just wondering that when you get reincarnated in a body that receives particular, everybody suffers to some extent. That's to be human to suffer.
Yeah.
But when you have a body that or a soul that goes into a body that has a particular type of suffering, is that chosen or intentional, or that's just a result of I don't know if I'm asking this quite right.
Yeah.
Does the soul intentionally choose a path
No.
that's going to lead to a certain type of suffering to teach you?
No.
Or is it just
No, it's consequence. If I slap you, I won't do it. But if I slap you, and I cause pain to another living entity, the law of nature is that pain is going to come back to me. I haven't chosen, I want to get slapped in my next life, but that I'm making choices, free will choices in this life, like that big thing that somebody slapped somebody at the Academy Awards or whatever it was. I heard that person It feels incredible remorse. And that person is at the Govardhan Echo Village place in Bombay, trying to realign himself inside. So I'll take the consequences. He's not going to be allowed at that event for another 10 years, but he wants to clear out where that came from. I don't know. I was told. But so he's making a choice today to not replicate what happened yesterday. So he's making a choice that becomes free from such tendencies. Residual tendencies stay. Consequences for acting on the tendencies we take responsibility for. So act of kindness comes back. Act of pain and suffering to others comes back in equal measure. We're not exactly choosing to get a particular type of suffering. We're choosing to act on an impulse. It could be a good one, or it can be a bad one, or a mix. And those choices are determining what my next situation is. And I can't spin the dial and I want this one. It's being determined by the laws of nature. And there are personalities or authorities that are overseeing nature. We don't see them, but they're according to the Vedic picture, they're in charge of things. The structure of the universe has departmental heads. It makes sense. Like, supposing your water doesn't work, what are you going to do? You call a plumber, and the plumber says, well, your plumbing is fine, yet they shut off the water valve. So then you go to waterworks people. Can you turn the water on, please? Why'd you turn the water off? Anyway, there's controllers of things in this world. And so in the field, so there are persons that make this determination, what your next situation is going to be. But the choices I make today is going to determine my next situation, good, bad, and mix. Does that answer your question?
Yeah. So if a lower life form can't generate karma, then it's purely up to the higher stream of things.
Yes. So that's supposing I become, I don't know, a bug. That's heavy karma. And for the duration of a bug life, I am reducing the karma by having that constriction or confinement of being in a bug's body. So some amount of karma is now burned. And that means consciousness is now elevated a bit because the covering is less. And so then the soul then evolves to the next life form, the next life form, the next life form. Without generating any more karma, I'm just burning off the previous karma, little by little by little by little.
So non-human life forms get to continue to ascend to each life form, and then once you're like happy,
then you have more freedom, and with freedom comes responsibility. No freedom, bark and or wag your tail. You're not responsible. Dogs just bark and chew on bones and wag their tail. But when you come to the human form, freedom and responsibility for your choices. And then you generate karma. Good. You can go up. You can stay. You can go down. There's a verse in the Bhagavad Gita that says that. Now, which particular mother and father, or which species of dog you're going to be, or species of bird you're going to be, or species of whatever you're going to be, tree or fish or whatever, that's the higher authorities are determining that. Now, supposing I'm going to become a human in my next life. I don't choose mom and dad. And what that situation is, it's my karma is going to, by higher authorities, I'll be situated where it's conducive for me to go the next. Or to have some constraint because of some misuse of free will. So whatever that might be, a poor family or abusive something, neglect or something. It's karma related. The bottom line for all of this is Krishna's advice: don't take birth again. Don't go for the better ones, because the better ones in the higher planets, even up to the topmost planet, there's birth and death. You're bound. You do good stuff, you're bound to get a body to get good reactions. Some people, I'm just fine with it. Give me good reactions. I'll do good stuff. But then there's birth, disease, old age, and death. Those are unwanted things. So I get the unwanted things along with the good things. But Krishna's advice is don't make those choices. Make the choice that breaks the bondage. And how to do that? Then there's different systems of yoga that will help you get there. While you're doing things that are meaningful to you, you follow this trajectory that'll take you beyond birth and death. And each one of the yoga systems will help you. Okay, anybody else?
What about the cows? The cows are considered as a lower, lower level.
Yes, they are. Here's I was going to add this, but now your question prompts me. From the animal species, there are 3 animal species that directly in their next life become human. In the mode of ignorance, Charles Darwin, a monkey. And in the mode of passion, a lion. And the mode of goodness, a cow. So from the monkey, next life will be a human form in the mode of ignorance. Lion, human form in the mode of passion. Cow, human form in the mode of goodness. Or predominantly. That's just a point of evolution. Now, your question specifically.
I thought the Lord himself, he wants cow to be cow. He does.
Yeah.
Because something bad they have done, they become cow.
I'm not sure what your question is, but it's not. If a soul becomes born in a cow, bull and a cow's child, that's just an evolution event, an evolutionary event, because the modes of nature with which they've been associating take them into that position. And their karma has diminished to the point where they can take birth in a mode of goodness position. Does that answer your question? Okay. Nothing Krishna says, no, you should become an animal. It's not like condemning or something like that. It's an evolutionary process event.
The next life or like
Say it again.
you have a good karma, so he will get a
This is humans now, right? If humans do good karma, then
so he will be human in next life.
No.
No.
higher. Here's the verse. Urdhvam means upward. Urdhvam gachanti sattva stha. Those are sattva stha, situated in goodness, they go up. Madhye, middle. Tishtanti rajasa. Those who are in the mode of passion, they stay in the raja platform. Earth is the place of fruitive activity. Raja. Adho gachanti tamasa. You go down. Tamasa goes down. So depending on the mode, you go up, stay, or go down from human platform. The other species, they just evolve burning off karma and going up to the next rung of life form along with little higher consciousness, little higher consciousness, little higher consciousness.
So once they don't have any karma left, then they.
Well, yeah, no karma left is no more birth. But when karma becomes lighter, human form. And then you make choices because you have rational faculty. Now, for example, a dog can be trained all kinds of things, jump through hoops and roll around the ground and do backflips, and they can learn skills, but it's not a rational. A dog doesn't just start doing backflips or roll. So they can be trained. Animal trainers train animals, but it's not a rational function. It's a reward, behavior reward. It's a Skinnerian thing. So humans can choose that I may go to a gymnast so I can learn how to do backflips and learn how to do different things. So I can improve my skills because I choose to improve my skills. And then there's some limitations. I may try really, really hard and I'm just not doing so well in school. Somebody else doesn't seem to really try very hard. They do really well in school. So there's different karma, but still we can improve our skills and change our nature by volition and by practice.
How bad, like for example, if someone doing bad, I reply and someone slaps and I was that considered as a bad karma?
Yeah, because you don't have to slap back. You're making a choice. If you slap back, you're involving yourself in generating more karma for yourself. The slap that came to you it's karma coming back to you through an instrument. Now you're making a choice. Now you may want to slap back, but it may not be. I haven't even thought about it. I just slap back. It's like that, the Academy Awards thing. The fellow that was slapped didn't slap back, and he was the hero. He did.
He was very.
Whatever. I'd rather than analyzing. When something hurtful comes, you can choose what to do. He was saying some bad things, and the guy hit him. Anyway, whatever the details are, you're making choices when your good fortune, ill fortune comes your way.
Same in Bhagavad. Like I haven't read the complete, but the serial I used to watch in my childhood.
Okay.
And, so Guru did bad to Pandavas, and then Arjun did the same thing. Like,
No, he followed what Krishna wanted. He was, I'm out of here. I put down my bow. I'm going to the forest. Let them have the kingdom. I'm not going to do this. That was Arjun. And Krishna explained, you have a duty. Your duty is to protect. That's your function. You're powerful, and these people are murderous. They need to be checked. You have a duty. Perform your duty. And because I'm asking, there's all kinds of things. I've already decided they're not leaving this battle. You can make a choice, Arjun. You can choose to say no, or you can choose to say yes. But I want you to know, they're not leaving this battlefield because they're to be punished. And when they're punished, they were liberated. We discussed this last night at the temple. Chapter 11, verses 32 through 34. Krishna is said, they're not leaving the battlefield. You can decide what you'd like to do. And I'm asking you, be an instrument. Now, it's not Krishna was being cruel and, smack them around. There's other understandings of why Krishna wanted that. And Arjun was, I'm out of here. Before, at the beginning, That's chapter 2, chapter 1 and chapter 2. Let them have the kingdom. Yes, they're vicious. Yes, they attempted murder 6 times. It's okay. Let them have the kingdom.
That big bad karma for
By neglect of duty, it's bad karma. Yes. By neglect of duty, it's bad karma. So then comes what's duty. That's another topic. We have our cycle. Huh?
Human being is hard to differentiate, but since it is that there might be a thin line.
Yes, there might be a thin line, and you need a good lens to look at that thin line, and what is it that Krishna wants in any given situation may not be so easy to discern. We talked about it in our morning class. It's true. What you're saying is true. It's not easy to discern sometimes. Therefore, we need to be very familiar with the literature that makes it very clear what is dharma, what is adharma. Certainly that's there in Mahabharata. Certainly that's there in Ramayana. Examples of dharma and adharma. And my situation, I'm not really clear from these texts. Is this what's the dharmic thing to do in this situation, in that situation? Sometimes it's not clear. You I'm sure you're familiar. Oh, I'm guessing you're familiar. That this question was asked of Yudhisthira when the yaksha came out of the lake. You can't drink some water. You got to answer my questions. You know that section, right? Mahabharata?
Not in deep, but
Okay, in principle. He wanted some water. His 4 brothers were lying there as if dead because they didn't answer the yaksha's questions. They drank the water. They were lying there as if dead. Yudhisthira came, and the yaksha came out of the lake and said, "You can't drink water. Look at your brothers. You want to be like that? Answer my questions." So he answered his questions. And one of those questions was your question. Yaksha said, it was Yamaraj in the form of a yaksha. And he said, it's very complicated sometimes to know what is to be done, what is not to be done. And when it gets like that, what are you supposed to do? Your question. And here's what Yudhisthira said. You're right. It's difficult. Therefore, Mahajano Yena Katasa Panta. Mahajana, the great souls, Gata, the goal, the method, is to be discerned from them. Therefore, we need to be familiar with what the wisdom literature or scriptural texts tell us in detail. And ideal is you have guru who instructs you. But supposing you got to make a decision, there's no guru around, and you left your cell phone home. You can't give them a call. What do? You be reliant upon the understandings you have of Dharma Shastras or Mahabharata and Ramayana and the behaviors of elevated personalities. And if you make a mistake, what happens if you make a mistake? Krishna will correct it. Right?
if we did something wrong, we have to pay that.
Yes. Here's chapter 9. Chapter 9, verse 30 and 31. Here's a gloss. Krishna says, if someone makes a mistake, they're trying to make a decision and they make a mistake. Not only they make a mistake, they do something really bad. Dur achar is bad behavior. Su dur achar is very bad behavior. Supposing there is such a person that does something su dur achar, but their nature is they're constantly engaged in trying to serve and please me. Apichetsu Dharajaro, Bhajate Mam Ananyabhak. You can look it up later, 9:30. It's an answer to your question. Here's what you should do. Here's what I should do. Here's what Krishna is advising Arjuna to do. Engage in unalloyed service to Krishna. Krishna says, I consider that person sadhu. The next verse says, his mistake I'll clean up. I'll make a course correction for him. He doesn't use that language, but I'll correct the problem within him and outside. So when you get to it, when you or I get to a situation, it's not really clear what is to be done, what is not to be done in this situation. We have to rely upon our sincere desire to please Krishna. We make the best effort that we can. And if there's some mess up, we take responsibility, but Krishna will correct us. He'll lift us and make a course correction for us. So the operative thing is not always making the right versus the wrong decision. It's the deeper consciousness of being connected to the Supreme, your mission of life. That's the language I've been using. If that's your mission in life, of course, Krishna will do the course correction. He's the captain. Are you satisfied or not? Not so sure. Digesting. Okay. 9:30 and 31, Bhagavad Gita. You can look later. Okay, it looks like we're ready to wrap up. You? Okay. Huh? What? Could you get the Mahaprasadam from the room upstairs? Go ahead, your quick question.
You mentioned Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says you are entitled to perform your duty, but you're not entitled to the fruits of it.
Yes.
It's easier said than done.
Yeah. Keep reading Bhagavad Gita. I mean, but by that I mean, the sound, spiritual sound has a cleansing effect. Continue the cleansing effect. And the cleansing will result in an ability that wasn't there before arising, because the false ego is the inhibitor. The false ego says, I am the cause of the results of my work. I mean, who's thinking otherwise? Everyone's thinking that way. I'm the cause of the results of my work. But Krishna says no. He says it twice. Never consider yourself to be the cause of the results. Never consider yourself to be the enjoyer of the results. And never consider yourself to be inducing others to act. There goes the whole of material life. What's left? Don't consider yourself to be the cause of the result. Don't consider yourself to be the enjoyer of that result. And don't consider yourself inducing others to act. Checkmate. So now your question is what to do, because that's the tendency is all those three things. And so purification through sound. And association with those who have that higher consciousness, or at least are on the path of moving towards that higher consciousness. And with faith in those persons who are actually modeling that life, that's great fortune, and that purifies. So it can live consciousness that the darkness is dispelled and the light comes in. The dimmer switch example. And just stay with it. However darkness may be, stay with it, and the light will come on, and the darkness will be dispelled. That's easy to say, and then to do. It takes some faith, it takes some practice, It takes good association. But we keep going because we know it's true. That's the faith. I mean, for example, here's just a for example. I know some people from different backgrounds that became vegetarian, and they feel better. So, like that was a good step. I didn't know if I could do it, but I did it, and now I feel better. So, the faith. There's a principle that says, really simple: when you act in knowledge, it increases faith. So if that one's tough, then do something that's less tough, and you do that, and it'll increase your faith. Just like Ramananda's wife had a car accident. And the doctor says, I spoke with her coming in, she's going to have to do some physical therapy. Didn't say, surgery or something.
After physiotherapy, there is a possibility.
Okay. But I said, I know really good physical therapists, in addition to what you're seeing, check it out. Because my confidence is it works. And it may not be the final thing, but if you've got to do the muscular before you do the bone, the structural first. So, and if it works, it increases your faith. Wow, she's a good physical practitioner, physical therapist. I have that faith, so I'm recommending her to your wife because she's good. Faith, acting in knowledge increases faith. Very simple. I give other examples, but so things that make sense to you and they're doable for you, you do those. And your faith in that source, the Vedic teaching and the teachers of that Vedic teaching will grow. And then you borrow from the strength that's over here that you've gained to this area over there that's not so strong. Borrow strength from where there's strength. And keep going. With now, gradually increasing faith. It's doable. It may look like a mountain to you. It's doable. It's doable. But you're tough. I know you. You're tough.
Now, Maharaj, I've been practicing, of course.
Yeah. But you're tough. You set your mind to something and you do it.
Yes.
I know. So, do that which is doable for you and keep going. And that's what you're doing. I'm not saying you're not doing that. And then, you look at gosh, that mountain's really big. And you get closer. Wow, it looks even bigger than it looked like when it was, a few miles away. It's really a big mountain. Keep going. Keep going. Make that connection, the yoga connection that's for the supreme purpose of your life, stronger. And you nourish those things that make that connection stronger. And you're on your way.
Mahaprasad, Krishna Priya Mataji told that see gift to you, so it may be in your belly.
Oh, it's in your back seat. There's a box. Plastic box. Put it in the back seat. I thought I brought it in, but I didn't. Okay, you want to have RT, and I don't know if that's good.
Yes.
Yeah, and I'm going to have to get to 26 2nd Avenue and before that, etc. And you're going to the driver? You're the driver.
Yes.
All right.
Yes. You moved to Long Island.
You did?
Yes.
Where in Long Island?
Hop Hog.
Hop Hog.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
It's,
I know where it is.
oh, okay.